have I talked to you about like the system theory, like, and so
I'm not sure.
okay, I think that what we're interacting with when you look at the fortune, it connects a lot of dots, but it seems like there's like some type of von Neumann-esque sort of panspermia thing happening here, whereas okay, in the 4chan whistleblower talks about these mobile construction units that live underwater and create these craft that are built to spec, or as Matt Brown put it, made to he didn't say built to spec, he
built
said
to purpose or something.
Made to purpose.
Yeah.
Mobile construction units underwater. What is even happening? Is this like a theory where Atlantis actually is real and we haven't discovered it, and they've gotten a tiny bit too advanced, right? And now they're showing themselves in some comfortability.
Why so many shapes? Why do you think so many shapes? I used to think flying saucers were discs. I used to think UFOs were flying saucers. That's what I used to think. Now, after knowing this guy for so long, reading all the reports, getting whistleblowers, talking with him, why so many shapes?
I think part of it's sometimes these might be, made to purpose. So, if they're only making it for a specific use case scenario, they'll design it to excel in that mission.
I guess we do that. We do that.
Absolutely.
We have bombers that look a certain way, and then we have reconnaissance vehicles that look another way. I guess.
Star Wars, they have giant cruisers, and they have the X-fighters, for different jobs. Would you be surprised to hear about cases where these things, large objects, come out of the ocean or go back into the ocean? Does that sound familiar?
I would not be surprised. I have not seen very large objects go in and out of the water, but I've definitely seen small to medium-sized UAPs either going into the water and disappearing, or going in and out, or coming out of the water.
Which sounds an awful like built to spec. So these beings seem to be built that way as well. The beings that are aboard these craft, they also seem to be built to spec. There are...
Imagine we are in a actual Sims-like weird-ass reality, and the creators of it is just coming in those forms and specific, shaped craft to like observe in the best way they can, or accomplish whatever they want, steer where they want to go.
Many cases where people have said that as soon as the beings are taken away from the craft, the beings die, like they're attached to the craft. There's been people who said that the craft seem alive and have this like weird skin. That the craft have no toilets and no living areas, nothing personal. It's all really exactly what it needs for the task at hand. And so are these beings. They're built in that way specifically as well, without gender, they don't really eat, they have no teeth, and it's just kind of, they're ephemeral and disposable.
So we've heard quite a bit of talk about us being containers, whether it's for souls or whatever, This kind of gives credibility to that, where they just use containers, to accomplish their agenda. And wherever they're actually from, like fucking, whether it's interdimensional, I have no idea where to start on that, right?
And they're treated as such as well. And now these things are ejected from this mobile construction unit, sometimes without beings, and they're sent across, to monitor, or in some cases shut down these nukes that might be tilting the scales a little bit. And so if you were a species that was looking to seed the galaxy, you would not do it yourself. You would evolve past that point. You would incorporate some type of technology to do it for you, at least preliminarily, and send those out. And if you had the ability to travel the universe at will in the blink of an eye, then you would be able to do this to 100 million planets at least at the same time, right? There would be an X amount of exoplanets that you could do this to. And each of those exoplanets wouldn't hold the correct conditions, right? Too much radiation on this one. Gravity is just not right. Oxygen levels, nitrogen, we're allergic to this plant. Whatever it is, there's always going to be something on these planets where you have to live in a suit or underground or in a bubble, which isn't ideal. So way more ideal to take whatever life is already seeming, what primitive life is already seeming to grow on that planet, and inject your DNA to then preserve your own seed into that planet. Inject DNAs of other plants and animal life into these plants as well, and create this zoo of incredibly vast and variant life forms, and then place these mobile construction units, you want to call them that, these von Neumann probes, into the oceans of all these planets that act as an immune response, pretty much, and then act as this monitoring system to make sure that everything's going well. And anytime you see things come in or leave the atmosphere, that might just be other probe-like injections of other biome.
Seems like a stretch, but a very interesting theory nonetheless. I would love to know your thoughts specifically. Subscribe, notifications on, leave a like, share, it all helps out a ton. Thank you for watching thus far, and do not go anywhere. This is getting good.
Recently there was a conference, the 100-year Starship. And of course, many people came in with designs to have gigantic fusion rockets take us to Mars and beyond, Jupiter, into the stars. Other people said, yes, antimatter rockets, that's the way to go. And we all had this mental vision of the Enterprise going to the nearby star systems. There is another way to do it. Think of Mother Nature. When Mother Nature wants to propagate life, one possibility is to send out seeds. Not just one or two, but millions of seeds. Most of the seeds never make it. But one or two do, and as a consequence, that's how trees and forests propagate. So why not create a nanochip using nanotechnology? How big would it be? Some people like Paul Davies say it could be as big as a bread box. Other people say it could be even smaller than that. Why not something the size of a needle? And because they're so small, it wouldn't take much to accelerate them to near the speed of light. Realize that a very small tabletop accelerator can accelerate electrons to near the speed of light. So it wouldn't take much for us to accelerate nanomolecules to very, very fast velocities near the speed of light using electric fields. Now, these probes would be different from ordinary probes. They would be nanobots. They would have the ability to land on a hostile terrain and create a factory, just like a virus. That's what viruses do. They replicate. One virus can create maybe 1,000 copies, then 1,000,000 copies, and then 1,000,000, billion, trillion, and all of a sudden you have trillions of these things propagating through outer space. And how would you do it? One possibility is to use the magnetic fields around Jupiter. Calculations have shown that you can whip around Jupiter using what is called the Faraday effect to whip particles to perhaps near the speed of light. And again, we don't have these nanobots yet. We have to wait until nanotechnology becomes sufficiently developed. But when that happens, perhaps the 100-year Starship is not going to look like the Enterprise. Perhaps they'll look like tiny little needles by the billions sent into outer space, and maybe only a handful of them land on a distant moon to create factories. And doesn't that sound familiar? This is the plot line of the movie 2001. Remember that gigantic obelisk on Mars? That was a von Neumann probe, a virus, a self-replicating probe that can then explore the universe near the speed of light.
I really like that. It's some really weird and eerie imagery, right? But it's fascinating at the same time because, it's a more advanced, already developed civilization injecting themselves into a naturally developing, ecosystem or life form.
Makes you wonder why we have cephalopods and also Venus flytraps and kangaroos and lizards and fish. And it's so vast and strange. It would make sense that all of that just comes from different parts of the universe, and that these intelligences that are controlling this system behind it all are just trying to make sure that life progresses and that life exists in the universe. That's their goal. And whether it's AI or whether it isn't, doesn't matter. It's just about preservation of life. And how can we make it the most vast and the most beautiful is by, throwing out these systems, seeding everything in this, and just terraforming absolutely everything that they can, and manipulating the DNA of this animal so that it fits on this planet, and so on and so forth, and just doing that over and over and over. And then you have things like Skywatcher that pops up.
Right.
You have these psionic people that, let's be honest, there might be some type of war game scenarios as well happening, right? We've heard of this. We've heard of Operation Interloper with Lou Elizondo, which was declassified, but essentially driving these nukes out into the middle of the ocean to see if they can trigger some type of response. Now, if you're an intelligent species, you're not going to fall for that twice. These aren't fish, right? So if you're out there psionically or war games or whatever it is, trying to attract this phenomenon, I don't believe that what we're interacting with is the intelligence behind the phenomenon. I think what we're triggering is some type of autoimmune response, some type of system, because that would make sense that you could do it over and over.
Yeah.
And that we found a way to do that, either through psionics, through love projecting out there and attracting these orbs, or through intense, warlike scenarios, or even war itself. We hear about a lot of, the Foo Fighter stuff, the Iraq stuff, and the nuclear meltdowns. And then you have the beings on board, right, which are ephemeral, and they're the ones doing the abductions. What do? It's all very procedural, and all is the same. If you look at John Mack, you look at David Jacobs, you look at Bud Hopkins, it's always, they take you, they perform a procedure that has to do with genetics, they give you a tour of the ship, show you beautiful things.
Sometimes you get to bang a hot hybrid.
That's right. And then other times, and then at the end of it, they show you the most terrible things. They show you the Holocaust. They show you like the terrible, nuclear wars and famine and starvation, and say, that's what's going to happen if you don't smarten up, right? Random stranger that lives in North Dakota or whatever, right? If you don't smarten up, the world's going to die. And you're like, oh my God. And then surely they know that saying that to us doesn't change anything. Surely they figured that out by now, that by showing yourself to a bunch of children in Rua, Zimbabwe, and telling them the world's going to end if they don't stop with this technology stuff. And then all that happens is these children grow up and they speak at UFO conventions or lose their minds.
Yeah.
Right? Surely they understand that that's not working, right? So why continue to do it? I think it's just part of the system. I think, again, this is all just system talk. They have this simulation of consciousness that interfaces with us, that floods us with endorphins, makes us feel good. It's all a procedure every single time. And it's so procedural that you can ask two witnesses back in the 1970s who don't know each other to describe what happened to them, and they'll describe the exact same scenario, right? And this is pre-internet, pre any publication of the matter. They'll still describe the same thing. So it seems like a system, at least half of what we're interacting with.
Make sure to check out the links below. It would be really appreciated.
Disorder! 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 When I became the sun that shone life into the man's heart. When I became the sun that shone life into the man's heart.